Now we are going to construct the humidity box or the condensation box that will absorb the additional condensation. This will act as the tree would naturally, tree would, not W-O-L-D, W-O-O-D, as the tree would naturally absorb any moisture, and the bees, of course, closes off any areas or openings that they don't want to have an airflow. But we have to have somewhere for the additional humidity to go, that condensation, if the bees cannot handle it. And this is where your top winter box will come in. This is not a feeder box. Remember, we're going to be letting the bees live off of their natural honey. We are only collecting what the bees will not need for our personal use. Because I'm not doing this to sell honey. I'm not trying to market honey. I'm not trying to mass produce honey. And as I'm eventually looking at, I will probably wind up with 4 hives overall. And so at least 2 to 4 hives. So I'll get plenty of honey over time. But the whole thing for this is to simulate and give the bees as natural of an environment as they would in nature. And this means allowing them to live off of what they create in their own reserves. So these boxes was donated to me. And as you notice, we've got lots of mold and stuff in here, because what they did is they spray painted it, and it didn't really waterproof it. Some of the stuff, like down in here, you'll see some of the wood was totally rotted. There was just no way to even save it. And I would not want to use this where my honey would be. However, for a winter condensation absorber, it's perfect. I have to clean everything off. Then I did there's some baking soda type. It's real caustic. You get it from your bee provider, and it will kill any of the mold and stuff. Be sure to use gloves and eye protection and so on. The stuff is really caustic. And then to clean any of that out, I soaked it in vinegar. Each sidewall I submerged and let it soak between 30 minutes to an hour each side in vinegar. And then, of course, it sat and it air dried. But you can see here, the inside, most of these were fine, but it was the insides of the boxes, you'll see, when I started cleaning them. You see all the black mold. And it literally got in underneath the spray paint. I don't know if they spray painted over after the mold got there, or if the mold developed after the spray painting. But I had to clean all this stuff off, and we'll get into all of that, and you'll see what I did and how I constructed this, and then how we will refurbish and reuse it. Now, one thing that I did do was here, the metal stripping and stuff on these, all of that came off. I will clean those and reuse those on new boxes, because my father-in-law has a lot of boxes that he wants to give me, but they're a different design. So I will probably wind up using all the metal strips and stuff to redo these. This one you can't really tell. It is some of these are these plastic things that have spacers, and they're not these that have the angle. These are the only ones I'll be using. I will not use anything like this, but you'll see more on that later. So let's get into how I did refurbish these to use them for winter box. All of these I had to melt off and re-clean, because you see this was it all melted in here. It was not put in well, and in some cases we had wax moths get into this. So I don't want that in my hive either. So all of that will get cleaned out. All of these will get a vinegar soak just to make sure that any of this mold that might still be in there is gone before I'll ever reuse these again. So most of these I will be able to reuse. The stripping and everything I'll be able to reuse. The boxes, it's 2 boxes. The feeder box, as you will see, is totally ruined. Some of the other stuff is it was just rotted away. So we're going to use what we can, and on these I'm going to use these to create my humidity or condensation collector. That would be the top of the inside of the tree, that the bees would let that wood up there absorb the moisture. Because remember, in a tree you don't have upper air holes and entrances and stuff like that. And so we're treating this the same as we would an old growth or old forest oak tree or birch tree that had the bee borings in and had rotted in the center where the bees would make their hive. So let's get started on this.
So in this step, I am going to be making my winter top box, or my insulated box, to absorb the humidity and so on. This was donated to me, and what they had done is sprayed it with a metal spray, but not waterproofed it. So as you see here, the whole thing rotted and got covered in black mold, schwarze Pilz. I cannot use these for honey, but I can refurbish them as best as possible and use them for like I can take and I can reuse the wire, things like this. There's the bee separator. I'll be able to clean and use those, but because of the black mold, I do not want to take a risk of that getting in with my bees. So what I'm going to do is I have totally cleaned this down to the base, removed all the metal and everything, and this is going to get a vinegar bath. Each side is going to soak about an hour in vinegar, white distilled vinegar. Then it's going to dry. Then I'm going to give it multiple coats of waterproofing. And we'll pick up after I've got all that done, because that's going to take me a day or two. All right, so this will be our winter box. This is one we were working on that had the black mold. So it's been cleaned. We doused it in the vinegar, soaked each side real good in the vinegar, let that dry. Then we put 2 coats of waterproofing on it. This was the bee divider that came with the stuff. I cleaned all the mold and everything off of it. Okay. And now what we're going to do, and you can gasp at this point, we're going to screw that onto this. Just like that. We're going to put 3 screws here. And maybe 1 or 2 over here, depending upon the depth. And we're going to be using 3 millimeter by 30 millimeter screws for this. So first we're going to do our sinkholes so we don't split the wood. I'm going to drill 2 millimeter sinkholes, and then we're going to run the 3 millimeter screw into it. So let's get that done. So here we have the finished piece. This is the one, again, that had all the black mold and stuff. We've cleaned all that out. There is also a baking soda or powder type that you can buy at your bee store that will help kill any black mold and such. Then we screwed this on. I had to redo all of this. All of her wood was rotted, so all of this had to be redone. But you'll notice these screws are sub-sunk. Now to keep the wood from splitting, as you saw, I drilled a 2 millimeter hole in each spot. The tops of these screws are 5 millimeters, so I took a 5 millimeter and just made a divot so I could sub-sink them without splitting the wood. Then these are 3mm diameter screws. I put them in. You notice I did the gauging so that they're in 30 centimeters, but they don't extend out. Again, you'll have to measure your own boxes. So I have 3 here, 3 along here, and because this is much thinner, I only put 2 on each side. And what this does is that holds that in place. It's not going to carry a lot of weight, but I don't want it separating when I take it off. And what this will do is this allows for maximum humidity flow, which this box will act like the upper section of the tree. It basically is nothing but a humidity collector. And it will sit on the top, so everything that rises through will get collected into here, and I'll show you how I pack this. So first we have 2 burlap bags. One runs this way, and the other one runs this way to make our bedding. This will allow for the initial absorption while still allowing for airflow. Then we're going to pack coconut fiber and more burlap running this direction, not from bottom to top, but side to side. And this allows a variation of the coconut fiber, the burlap, coconut fiber, burlap, for it to absorb and retain that moisture over the winter without allowing too much to remain down in the hive. So let's get that one done. So we have the outer, we have a layer of burlap and a layer of coconut fiber and another layer of burlap. You noticed here, I'm not allowing any excess burlap to come over here. I do not want to make the bottom any thicker because that can block the absorption rate. So any additional stuff gets folded onto the sides and the next piece of coconut fiber gets packed in. So let's finish this up. At this point, we have our burlap laid one way and the other. Since this is a bag, we basically, for all intents and purposes, consider we've got 4 layers of burlap on the bottom. Each bag has 2 layers, so there's 2, there's 4. Then I'm using large bags as well. Just because there's different size bags, I'm using the larger ones. Then I will fold one up neatly. It's not crumpled. They're folded, packed, and in between each one goes a full layer of coconut fiber. And then of course here on the outside is the burlap. And this, you'll notice I've got this packed a little bit away from, that one's still touching a little bit, but most of it is done to where it will pull any moisture away from this wood through the burlap and into the coconut fiber, dispersing it through the rest of the burlap, allowing it to dissipate. Any leftover burlap we're going to fold. We're just going to fold this over. And then we're going to take one bag. We're going to fold it so it sits in here. Everything gets margined down, and then the lid goes on. So let's get that done. So that's there. The outside that was left hanging over is folded in. This then is a large one that's just folded to fit into there. That will keep the moisture from coming into the lid. They did not do this. This is the old one. They didn't do that, and you can see what it looks like. They didn't take care of this. So I'm only using this one for a demo. This will get totally, I'll take all of this apart, clean all of this, and make a new lid later. But this is just for a demonstration purpose. And there you go. I already have the other lid outside ready, a good one. But this then would be your top winter box. If you really wanted to not leave honey for the bees and you wanted to feed them, you could create a hole in here for your liquid feeder, or you lift this off and put patties directly down, fontan or whatever, directly down on top of the taller main hive, the brood hive. And you would still do the same thing. Since I'm not worried about getting mass amounts of honey, once I get 2 or 3 hives running, I'll be getting more honey than my family can use. I'll probably be sharing it out to the neighborhood. But this gives you an idea. And then we will check back in a year and let you know how it went. I'll do little updates along through this summer. But that's it.